Ooh, look at that. An electric SUV, performance character, sporty coupe shape, but still suitable for the family. Does that work? We'll try to find out. Thomas and Autogefuehl for you with the Skoda Enyaq Coupé RS or vRS, depending on how you want to spell it in your market actually. And look at that, the front already really strong with the unique RS shape. Black frame around, then the illuminated front grille is standard then for the RS model. And here in the lower area you can see also special for the RS version, yeah, a little more sinister look. But then the Mamba green color for today, our main vehicle, screaming out, unique color for the RS version. There's also a race blue available. That would be my Thomas blue for sure. Or what about an orange coupe, a silver one in red, white or black. Several colors available for the coupe in general, but then two specific RS colors. Here, the wheels would come 19-inch standard for the coupe, 20-inch standard for the RS and 21-inch here. As you can see them right now, massive, but in this aerodynamic styling. So there is the Enyaq with the SUV shape. The RS will both be available for the Enyaq Coupé and the normal Enyaq SUV. The Coupé has the difference that it has this falling roof line, so more design focused. Here also in the RS with black frames around. The length, however, both the same, 4.65 m or 183 inches. It's really about that falling roof line, if you prefer that from design or not. And then you can see here strong shoulders. You either get a normal suspension in the RS and it's a sports suspension, or optional DCC, dynamic chassis control, that's the adaptive suspension. The full matrix LED lamps are standard for the RS model, by the way. And you can see here the turning indicators or hazard lights are really spectacular, looks really stunning. And the question is, why does Skoda pay so much attention to headlamp design? Well, it's this heritage from the Czech glass craftsmanship, and they somehow want to transport this one then into headlamp unit design. Here when it's a little bit darker you can see full glory of this illuminated grille. I think it's a really great idea. I mean, it looks really amazing, doesn't it? Here, just one more clear look. Well, talking about the turning indicators here in the rear, they are cascading actually, and that whole rear of course looks somehow sexier here in that coupe version with that falling line. And I think it's a very clean design overall, not too many elements like that, and also contrasting lower area here just in black. And of course it's an EV, so we don't need fake exhaust. And you maybe have already seen the Enyaq and the Skoda lettering here. So both here and here, both are then in black for this RS version. The acceleration figure here for the RS model, by the way, 6.5 seconds to 1 km an hour or 62 miles an hour, 460 Newton meters of torque max. Once again, all-wheel drive, one electric motor in the rear, the stronger one, and one electric motor in the front, a little bit weaker one. And that's why we also have somewhat of a rear wheel bias, but it will be, you know, quite balanced as we know so far. But we find out more about in the driving part, which will also include some, let's say, fun driving for sure. These cars that have coupe versions and the classic SUV versions, usually I would think like the SUV looks more natural and also it has more usability factor in the trunk and so on. But I think this time that coupe here in the Enyaq looks way better. At least I think so. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. In the UK, by the way, this color here, the Mamba green, is called Hyper Green. So hyper instead of Mamba number 5. What about charging, battery and range? First of all, the overall range with the big battery, 77 kWh net. So far our experience around 400 kilometers or 250 miles. Then of course it depends, summertime, wintertime, then plus minus. We'll see later in the driving part what we can score today with the vRS. Well, and then about charging, we have just this nice sample here for you. Actually, they have done an update, so everything with the big battery now is at 135 kilowatt. And that means then, now it gets interesting, for the 80 version, the rear-wheel drive with the big battery, 29 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge. But the ATX all-wheel drive and the RS all-wheel drive, 36 minutes. wait a minute, why is that slower? Because they indeed get different batteries from different supplier with a different cell chemistry. That's interesting. So you get basically a higher model and have slower charging. The first peak charging, like the first couple of minutes, is actually better with the ATX and the RS, and supposed to have also a peak at 170 kilowatt, but just very shortly. And then the difference is that the charging curve is falling earlier with the all-wheel drive models. That's something, right? And you might have noticed, yes, this roof box here that you can get is also available for the Coupé, so it can be installed right here. Sometimes it's the case that when you have like a special chassis form that doesn't work anymore, but here it does, and actually it looks quite fancy with that roof box, right? Usually it looks weird, but in this case here, the combination is quite decent, isn't it? Is there a Frunk or not? No, there's not. So just for wiper fluid, but at least no, that's not the wiper fluid. Here, the wiper fluid is here, but at least then they have include this cone then in here, and yeah, then or this funnel, and then you can fill it in a little bit easier. Yeah, like this. Khaki, this high gloss black, not my favorite at all. We know that from a lot of Skoda, Seat, VW vehicles now. But what's cool, keyless entry, easy. Put your hand on the outside, on the inside to close or open, and door closing sound. Lovely, really like, yeah, low frequency door closing sound, I love that. And the RS version also features microfiber here at the inside and this carbon fiber style. And above that, also like this, it's not too soft though, just a little bit, but it has a nice structure, so that looks good build quality wise. And we know that here from the Skoda vehicles here, yeah, it's the, somewhat, let's call it the way, somewhat Rolls-Royce style, just a little smaller and a little bit more, it's maybe the understated Rolls-Royce. Let's take it that way. Well, and then not understated today is the RS interior with these contrast stitches. Wow. And indeed, you always get this color also when you pick a different exterior color. Think we can really argue about that. If you want it more subtle, you would not go for the RS, but the Sport line, and not maybe like an 80 or ATX Sport line, and you would get the same seats, but then with gray contrast stitches. The seats themselves, by the way, and you just keep listening and Cornelius films the seats while I'm putting that umbrella back to place. That's always some work. Yeah, about the seats. So you can see here these sport seats with a lot of shoulder support, and they look just awesome. Once again, we can argue about the contrast stitching, but the form itself, wow, here, especially that shoulder area. Then the perforation with microfiber, really awesome. The only thing is that the outside slick parts here, that's not leatherette, it's animal material and so unnecessary. So Skoda should have made a more progressive move with that one, definitely. Also for the steering wheel, no alternative material available yet, but they are working on it and they promised to change it for the future. Of course, it will remain the same look and quality, just will be then more sustainable. This contrast stitching is somehow fun. I think in this color, a little bit over the top, isn't it? But here, the microfiber on the dashboard, that brings so much character and atmosphere, sporty character in that interior. Overall, I have to say, when you pick a blue exterior also, it wouldn't fit like exactly matching with this color on the interior. But blue with yellow works, like when you think about like this contrasting colors or something. But overall, yes, maybe gray would have been cooler like in the Sport line, but I think still, I love the interior. As far as I checked the configurator so far in the UK market, you do not get the microfiber, but just all the way animal skin. Really, in 2022 for an electric vehicle? Skoda guys, I'm watching you. But I have to say, the seat ergonomics from the seat form is just awesome. So much shoulder support here, really sporty. At the same time, it keeps actually the weight of the lumbar area. So long motorway runs, as long as the range is of course sufficient, no problem. A lot of electric controls here, also for the lumbar support and so on. So even as a tall person here, 1.86 m or 6'1", with all the controls and so on, is no problem. Headroom, also plenty of space left. You can see here the fixed panoramic roof. Yeah, and I mean, no matter if sporty driving or long-term driving, you can enjoy the roof, but also that seating position here is really great. I'm feeling super comfortable and cozy, and also with this, you know, racy accentuations, steering in, out, up, down. So a good seating position here for different heights. Cockpit overview of the siblings here: VW ID4, Audi Q4 e-tron and the Skoda Enyaq. I think this one has the most beautiful interior. Look at that here, like this swinging line, and here in the RS also with the microfiber, that's beautifully done. Very, very base version of the Enyaq. Get a 10-inch screen, a smaller one, but all coupes already. Also, of course, the RS gets the 13-inch screen. There is capacitive volume control here. And also not backlit, but at least you also have it here on the steering wheel, and you can always use this actually. If we move a little bit further down, then we still have some hard hotkeys. They sound a little bit cheap from that clicking sound, but at least, for example, you have a drive mode selector, you can pick the driving modes and so on. Further down below, we have cup holders. They are not really adaptive, but they have this, like special holes so that these bottles can fit in there, and then you can basically open them with one hand. So that's maybe a thing, I don't know. One inductive charging pad, or also cable connection for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but it also works wirelessly. And then a very tiny, oh, ain't that cute, gear selector here. And there's no P mode, you just hit the parking brake, the electric one, then it's basically the P mode. Cubby hole, and then here, well attached, this one, and then it kind of goes in a puzzling way. Yeah, it's great camera work here as well today. So here, 1, and then 2, but also 3, 4, yeah. And then you can also Tetris this all the way back. To Tetris, is that a new verb? Tetris this. Steering wheel here with nice contrast stitching. vRS logo. In the UK, once again, it's vRS. In Germany, for example, it's just RS. Who knows why? It's supposed to be some copyright thing with, was it with Ford or so? Yeah, strange thing. Then here on the left side, there's for the volume jog and also muting. Heated steering wheel and real button still. Like to have that, that's cool. Here, these shifting pedals, they are for recuperation modes. Like 3 levels of recuperation, you always have to set them after driving, because they do the homologation for the range and cycle and so on with the automatic recuperation mode. Then it adapts, for example, when there's someone in front of you with recuperation and freeway, it rolls. Usually this car is more about rolling, and you use the brakes for the regenerative braking, but you can also use them the shifting pedals. On the right side, you can activate the travel assistance systems, and here you can switch the view a little bit in the small digital instruments. And usually with Skoda, others like Octavia, Superb, here you can control more in the digital instruments. But here it's kind of like, I have found no real function for that. It's kind of like dead. It would have been cool if you can scroll through some menus, like in the radio on the infotainment system or something, but no. That doesn't happen. Digital instruments, easy, clear to read, and you can adjust so much. That's basically it. They rather focus then on the head-up display. Recuperation modes. Here, the normal driving mode is recuperation level auto. The car decides itself. There's like a stronger recuperation when there's a car in front of you, for example. Then the B mode is always strong recuperation. You have to set it with the shifting lever, or then you can use the shifting pedals. 1, 2, 3, that is stronger recuperation, or go the right shifting pedal up again. But the thing is, let's say I put it to level 3, like almost one pedal driving, then I park the car, and then I put in the D mode again, well, then it's being resetted. The reason is manufacturers need to offer the homologation with one specific driving mode, and then they basically have to decide which is the startup driving mode. Hey, and the head-up display, with augmented reality function, we show you already while driving. You see here this big arrow. That is actually quite helpful then I really know where to turn actually. And of course with the usual functions also for speed and allowed speed and so on and so on. Infotainment system has been an issue majorly with Audi, VW and Skoda here in the electric vehicles, but here they've put an update now, and you can see already here it's faster now. It looks actually quite cool, and as also this rather big overview. Let's take a look at the map right here. Once again, there are better ones, but there are also worse ones, and it is indeed more responsive than before. We're in the Italian Tuscany region for you today. Of course, a very beautiful region, no doubt. Seat heating is here on the screen, and also the temperature stays in the screen. So for a capacitive solution, it's somewhat okay. Still, I would prefer the manual dials here always. So either have this screen, or you can also pick this home menu here. Not sure which. I think rather this one has a better overview. Then you can also set here the stationary air conditioning, for example. Also time it that you get up in the morning and the vehicle is warm. That's actually quite fancy. And Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration like this. And it also features here the Canton sound system, and this has a very nice sound indeed. Good resonance room here. Earlier we had like a bug where the subwoofer was failing. Not sure if it's together that some of the vehicles are here. Prototype vehicle might be an issue, but I always want to mention that, to be honest. The rear view camera resolution is not the best, let's say it that way, but here I want to show you this cool rear view camera image with a sunset from the Italian Tuscany. Just beautiful here, directly at the vineyard. Isn't it lovely? What about the rear, guys, here? So then this sunshade. So the shade, manual shade is here. It's easy, good solution, definitely, especially for the kids in the rear. Also microfiber, and then you also have this configuration. Then when it's available in your market, the microfiber also in the rear, and with this perforation, this is really a good job, I think. And that fixed panoramic roof, by the way, it leaves a lot of headroom. It also is kind of like shaded, that it doesn't get too hot. Of course, it will get hotter than if it wouldn't be there. But it's standard for all coupe models, so it's not a specific RS thing. It's really standard for all coupes. And then here the legroom. So it works with 4 or 5 tall adults easily. Also in the rear, when I have the seat to my driving position, and also in the rear, I'm under the panoramic roof, and so there's also headroom left. And the SUV would have this more continuous line, that it's better for the headroom, but since they went here for the fixed panoramic roof, then it gives you some headroom again, so that you don't have a big compromise in here with this vehicle. And that's actually then quite okay. You have ISOFIX on the outside parts. You do already fold the seat from here, but you cannot adjust it in any way, in angle or something. So that's fixed as it is. I released it before. I obviously didn't put it in. Yeah, that's the. You okay? Maybe the car wants to talk to us. They do that nowadays, So then here, cup holders, they are a little bit weird because they're also not adaptive. And then we have the ski hatch here as well. And well, about that middle console, this is with this extra cubby hole, 2 USB-C chargers, but you can also remove this whole thing. Then have it a little bit like more like this flat floor, which is to me a little bit cooler, isn't it? Any compromises with the trunk or boot area? Let's take a look. Here, the backpack stands upright like it is, even here in this more far back area. This is what you lose with the coupe shape here, but you still see it's very usable. 1 meter or 40 inches in width and about 92 centimeters or 36 inches in normal length. And even here the height you can see is around 40 centimeters or 16-17 inches, so totally fine. What about the charging cable? There are 2 solutions, either here in the lower area, there you can store one. Goes quite deep in there actually, or then here there's also the separate bag, so they also thought about clean solution as for that. And then you can fold the seats right here. There's a lot of nets equipment here as well, so yeah, nets all over the place in this configuration. And when I put the measuring stick all the way through to a seat as I would be driving, yeah, I know you guys love that I'm gonna do that here. So they are almost 1,80 m or 70 inches. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge, Skoda Enyaq Coupé RS or vRS, and we pick the Sport mode and do an acceleration 0 to 1 km an hour here on that open road, and let's see how that goes. 6.5 seconds is the official figure. Can we reach that? Let's see. Preload. Plop, that's it. Nice. Yeah, pretty quick. Dual motor. Check in the time code below if you reach that 6.5 seconds. That was a lot of fun actually. And at the same time, actually pretty smooth as well, because front and the rear power right there. And here the road is actually quite bumpy, but the comfort is still given in a way because the DCC, the adaptive suspension, is doing a great job actually. Here in the sports mode, it's of course a little bit rougher. I feel like, you know, doing some rally racing here right now. And if you want to have it a little bit more comfortable, you can always go back here to the normal mode, and then the suspension is a little bit more forgiving. It always rules in a certain spectrum. Oh, now it's a little bit slower, these small birds. So inside this, you know, like this smaller spectrum, like you just move like the span where the suspension is being adaptive, so to speak, and that's of course good. The only thing you cannot deny here are the 21-inch wheels, and that's the thing. You do lose comfort, so I would definitely stick with smaller ones. Here with the RS, the 20-inch are standard, so yeah, definitely leave it with that. And if you have the non-RS Coupé 19-inch are standard, then leave it also with 19-inch, because the smaller it is, yeah, it might not look that sporty, but 19 already looks sporty and you just have more comfort. Steering is really nice and precise. In the normal mode, it's a little bit lighter. In the sports mode, then you have a little bit more feedback. That's actually quite good. So I like to have a little bit more feedback from, you know, from the steering here. Yeah, and suspension is really nice. The whole chassis also, like how everything works together. Chassis, steering, suspension is a really, really good drive. Yeah, over this small bridge here. Beautiful, really. So much fun to drive it indeed, and also really nice roads here in Tuscany. Not nice in, you know, as for the road surface, but I mean, that's also good for testing, that we can see how it behaves here in these rather rough conditions actually. So although it is not a small SUV, you still have the feeling it is agile because low center of gravity. Battery pack is in the lower bottom of the car there, and then once again with the agile steering, and here also, you know, uphill out of the corners, power is always there. So this vRS version gives you a little bit more punch, a little bit more boost. Would I say that you definitely need this vRS version if you compare it to the AT or ATX version? The ATX version would of course be the more comparable one, already with the all-wheel drive. Well, you do notice that you have more punch, of course, yes, but it's not that you would say it's a completely different car. And we do feel with a lot of the electric performance vehicles that the differences are not that large if you compare them to the, you know, when you have compared combustion engines, like the sports versions of the combustion engines, because more or less here then it's only electronic tune. You would go for the vRS version if you, like me, appreciate, for example, a lot of Alcantara use here on the dashboard, and also the seats. The seats are keeping us tight very well at the same time. They're super comfortable. So Team Cornelius and Thomas here today, and we both feel actually really comfortable in the seats. We are both very tall. Cornelius even taller than me. That means something. So, and here, especially in the shoulder area, you know, it is so good because it basically keeps off some pressure of the lower lumbar area, and because the weight is being held here in the shoulder area. So this is really awesome. We're really enjoying the drive. This car can do both comfortable and also long motor rides with these comfortable sport seats. It's also really silent in here. The noise insulation is really very, very good. We hardly hear anything from the outside. It's almost like an totally insulated cabin. And then also you have the silence from the electric drive. Yeah, you also heard that. What we do not have is kind of this sound emulation or so that's not present here. They didn't go for this philosophy, rather, you know, just silence even in the sporty mode, kind of like stealth a little bit. But to me, that's fine, you know. Also for the vehicle overall, I'm not sure if you really need that, but you can surely, you know, argue pro and con. It's a really beautiful area here, right? Not maybe with the, you know, with the construction here, but overall beautiful roads here. Look at that alley with the pine trees, beautiful indeed, and really good to test this, you know, not so small vehicle also on a little bit smaller roads, because once again, it doesn't feel as big as it is due to the very good driving characteristics. Am I missing anything? Well, I have a head-up display in my line of sight. Also, you have this augmented reality function that I have like projected arrows, even if I haven't the GPS on that screen here at this moment. It's actually okay that it sticks here with the DCC, because then I can switch back and forth. The only thing is, yeah, you might argue, do I want to go back to the GPS? And then you always have to go like, you know, for example, here menu, and then back to the GPS. That's more or less okay, but I think it would be better if I would have a direct hotkey somewhere. At least for DCC selection, I can then once again press the lower button there, and let's go to normal mode again. See the difference from the, yeah, you immediately feel that the DCC is then softer and more forgiving, especially when you have some smaller bumps in the road right there. So most of the time probably I would drive with that, but you can also individualize that. For example, here in the individual mode, then you can, for example, set my preferable a little bit more resistance from that steering wheel. At the same time, maybe go for the softer suspension when you have these bumpy roads or so. So indeed, it is a family EV SUV, but you can also get it for driving fun. And it's the same concept that we really know very well from the Skoda Octavia vRS, or the, what's there? No, there isn't a Superb vRS, right? Yeah, mainly okay, leave it. The Kodiaq, there's a Kodiaq vRS. Yeah, that is the comparable ICE version to this one here. Let's go to the sports mode once more. We have like a slight left turn here. All free, Cornelius? Yeah, okay, free. Great. I'm trusting it. And 100 again, that's it. Sorry about that. He was like, yeah, that was, so I didn't need like a G-force indicator in the instruments or something, so Cornelius was the G-force indicator, so that worked very well. But here also, when we accelerated out of the corner, very smooth. There's no, you know, that the steering would lead me somewhere where I don't want to have it. So very good distribution also between the axles, front and right. So that proves again they found a really, really nice setup here. As for assistance systems, the blind spot monitor, well, gladly there's no one around here today. That's why we can drive very, very well. But the blind spot monitor would appear here in the side mirrors, and then we can also set the travel assist if you have that option here at the steering wheel. But then to control the cruise control is here that lower column here next to the steering wheel, and then we can set the cruise control and also the speed with this lower column. And here the active lane keeping assist. I mean, this is hardly to see here, even for our own eyes, this wide line in the middle part, but here the car is keeping it straight very well. You're supposed to keep your hands on the steering wheel still, nevertheless. And also when we tested some motorway driving earlier, and also some you know, winding corners, that was all very, very well done. So yeah, really impressed. So everything here, that's actually nice. Also augmented reality display for the lane keeping assist. So it's displaying me basically lines on the lines. Yeah, that might be something for, you know, nighttime, that you can see that then maybe a little bit better or something. Yeah, that could be something. So in the sporty aspects, great. Comfortable aspects, also great. We had enough performance. You can maybe argue with electric vehicles, you can always get more performance. But is it really necessary to be even faster? maybe not so. The top speed, by the way, is 180 kilometers an hour or 112 miles per hour, also sufficient. And then we also have, no, that's the menu. Then we also have, the economy data. And here now we are around 18.5 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometers. It's perfect temperatures for EVs out there at the moment, 15.5 degrees Celsius. So when it would be a little bit colder or you drive more in a performance way, then you go maybe like 20 kilowatt hours in 1 kilometers. When it's really cold, maybe a little bit worse. But that's approximately then 32 kilowatt hours on 100 miles. And what does it mean for the range then if we calculate that with this 77 kilowatt hours battery net? A lot of numbers, sorry about that. But sorry, it's necessary, it's really necessary. So the approximate figure, definitely these 400 kilometers or 250 miles is realistic for this big battery pack. 70% of all customers so far went for the biggest battery pack. This is also a trend we see throughout the EV industry, because the batteries do not offer so great range yet. Most people then went for the bigger batteries. It will be less than 400 kilometers or 250 miles in winter times, like when it's really cold where you live, and when you drive really efficient, cruise control, low speed. In summertime, you could also exceed this range figure. But overall, I think it's also fine, And here once again in these bends, really nice from its steering, yeah. And I love this steering and seating combination, just awesome. So the facts here also for the driving figures is actually also fine. The question is really, are there any box unchecked here? And well, at least from the driving part, we hardly found any. Maybe here that I would have like the separate climate control and don't need to be touching the screen. Similar in the new BMWs, by the way, with the operating system 8. At least it always stays in this direction and is therefore also in the screen, also backlit. And you see it, not like at night in the ID4, for example, where you have to go here in the touch area. And here, this, of course, I wouldn't use that for the volume. I would also use it here on the steering wheel for changing the volume. Yeah, but so maybe little bit things from the user interface to tweak or something. Software has also been updated here, so it's easier to control it while driving. So overall, very impressed. That was a great result also from the driving part. Of course, big competitors, like a little bit smaller, the Kia EV6, but definitely worth watching that one. Or of course, one of the standard vehicles, meanwhile in this segment, the Tesla Model Y, tune in there.